Generally in Christiania there's this big tolerance towards cannabis. For the last more than 30 years there's been a big cannabis market in a very small part of Christiania. And around 15 years ago the police started policing the market very strongly, raiding the market and so on. And what used to be a very charming market for cannabis has turned into a more hardcore trade still, only cannabis, but more hardcore because the only pushers who have been able to withstand the pressure are the ones who are best organized. So the market has gone from being one where sort of people have beautiful flags and there's a very nice spirit there to be sort of a very closed up, not very welcoming market actually. Christiania is based on a hippie philosophy of dialogue and understanding, and the forces behind the cannabis market are much more hardcore. What's a little bit sad about the cannabis market is that a lot of the stories about what goes on in 98% of Christiania disappears because it's more interesting to hear headlines about drug dealers and Pusher Street and so on. And it's actually just a small part of Christiania. The community has tried to sort of restrict the cannabis market to being only in what's called Pusher Street. Christiania is an area of 32 acres, and so it's a big area in the middle of Christiania, or in the middle of Copenhagen. And it's just a small strip of it that where cannabis trade has been tolerated. Then about 2 months ago, a policeman was shot here. There was police all over with guns and pointing flashlights and guns in the heads of people and so on. So it was quite intimidating. And the fact that we could do something ourselves against that whole vibe was important. The first 24 hours after the shooting, all the police or all the politicians were saying was Christiania has to take responsibility, Christiania has to do something and so on, which is quite unique because I don't think you'd see anywhere else in Copenhagen or elsewhere when there's a police shooting that the politicians go out and ask the community to take responsibility for the problem. There's a great demand for cannabis in Copenhagen, as there probably is in most metropolitan areas around the world. So we knew that we couldn't just stop cannabis trade from happening, but what we could do is take down some of the sheds and so on where the trade was being held, because that was what was sort of the key structure to the organized part of the cannabis market. Cannabis is still traded in Pusher Street. I think if we take the police estimates, it's down to 20% of what it was before. The way it was before, it was highly organized and it was almost like a supermarket. I mean, you had 40 to 50 different sheds selling cannabis, like pre-rolled joints. But it's not like we've had an idea or an ambition that we'd stop cannabis trade completely in Christiania. We have a completely different atmosphere than we had for at least the last 5 years, where the pushers have been wearing masks and there's been like a really heavy, dense atmosphere down there. It's not very compatible with the sort of hippie ideals of Christiania, so that's really what we want to do away with.